In December 2007, Kenya stood at a crossroads. A tightly contested presidential election between incumbent Mwai Kibaki and opposition leader Raila Odinga set off a political earthquake. But what followed was far more devastating than a disputed vote count. The aftermath ignited a storm of ethnic violence that spread like wildfire across the country. Over the next few months, Kenya was consumed by brutality. Neighbors turned against neighbors, community tore themselves apart. Innocent civilians were caught in the middle of a storm they didn't understand and couldn't escape. By the time the violence subsided, over 1,100 people were dead and more than 600,000 had been forced to flee their homes. What remained was a broken nation, scared, traumatized, and desperate for answers. The world watched, and finally, someone acted. The International Criminal Court opened an investigation into the post-election violence. For the first time, real accountability seemed possible. Charges were brought against 6 prominent Kenyans, including Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, the Minister for Higher Education at the time. For victims and survivors, this was their chance. A rare moment where the powerful will be held accountable. But behind the scenes, something was unraveling. Witnesses, many of whom had agreed to testify in The Hague, began to vanish. Some were bribed, others were threatened, a few were abducted and later found dead. The case that once promised justice slowly crumbled under the weight of silence and fear, and by 2016, the ICC officially dropped the charges, citing a lack of evidence. But many believe the truth had simply been buried alongside the people who tried to tell it. So, what really happened? Who silenced the witnesses? And why did one of the most important cases in Kenyan history simply disappear? Before we dive deeper into this rabbit hole, thank you for being here. Your support is more powerful than you think. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more investigations just like this. As always, my name is Mike Kahindi, and this is a story that powerful people hope you'd forget. But we won't let that happen. April 30th, 2015. A quiet Thursday evening in Eldoret, a town nestled in Kenya's Rift Valley. Veteran journalist John Kitui, editor and founder of The Mirror Weekly, was on his way home after another long day of chasing the truth. He wasn't a household name to many Kenyans outside his town, but among local journalists, Kitui was respected, brave, steady, and afraid to publish what others were too scared to even whisper. He wasn't walking fast, he didn't need to. This was home. But just as he neared his destination, something went wrong. 2 men emerged from the shadows, no words, no warnings. They attacked him. Respected blows to the back of the head and then the front, the kind of beating that doesn't leave room for survival. When they were done, they took only his phone and office keys, his wallet and expensive watch, left untouched. This wasn't a robbery, it was a message, a very clear one. John Kitui was left to die, gasping, choking on his own blood. It took 11 minutes before a group of Boda Boda riders stumbled upon his broken body. They rushed him to Eldoret Hospital, but by the time he arrived, it was already too late. He was pronounced dead on arrival. In the weeks leading up to his murder, Kitui had been reporting on some things dangerous. The ICC case against Deputy President William Ruto. Specifically, he had published a piece with a provocative headline, "Now, ICC plot to jail Ruto." This article wasn't just speculation. It dove deep into the mystery surrounding a missing witness in the trial, Meshach Yebei. Yebei, one of the key witnesses expected to testify against Ruto, had vanished just months earlier on December 28, 2014. A little over a week later, his decomposed body was discovered in Savile National Park, in a place with a name as chilling as the story itself, Man-Eater's Park. An autopsy revealed what many feared. Yebei had been struck in the head with a blunt object, a brutal, deliberate killing.
Those that strangled Meshach Yebei are the same squad that was used to kill Jacob Juma. And what I'm talking about, we were somewhere, in fact, yesterday with Honorable Raila Odinga, and the same story was narrated to us. And therefore, anybody asking the killers to investigate, you must murder. I think we are just dancing. You can't ask the killers to investigate themselves.
And he wasn't the only one. By this time, several witnesses in the ICC case had either disappeared, recanted, or were reportedly murdered. Kitui was among the few who dared to ask why, and when he did, he too ended up silenced. May 2016, the nation was divided, angry, exhausted, and then Raila Odinga, then the leader of the opposition called coalition, stepped forward with a chilling announcement. He didn't speak in riddles. He read 10 names. 10 people, he claimed, were part of the web of witnesses connected to the ICC trials. 10 people who had vanished or been killed. The list included names that will never make it to the witness stand. Njoroge Kichere, George Njoroge Wagacha, aka Afko, Timothy Mburu Gatira, Anthony Mwenje, aka Noriega, Maina Diambo, Naftali Irungu, aka Marcus, Juguna Gitao Njuguna, and Charles Ndungu Wagacha. Some of them didn't just disappear, they were assassinated. George Wagacha, who served as the acting Mungiki chairman, and Naftali Irungu, the group's treasurer, were gunned down on April 29, 2008 while driving toward Naivasha prison. No arrests, no suspects, no justice. Juguna Gitao Njuguna, a Mungiki spokesman, was shot dead on Luthuli Avenue, right in the heart of Nairobi, broad daylight. Again, the killers vanished into the shadows.
Mmoja wa suti alikuwa anataka kujifichia na mlango hivi, mmoja akamvuruta, "Kuje twende ama unataka tukumalizie hapa?" Akakataa, akaanza kupiga mayowe. Ndio risasi ikatolewa 3 kwa kichwa, sisi tukalala chini.
Last week alipoongea akasema kuna waheshimiwa 3 atawataja wakiendelea kupiganisha vijana. Hapo ndio maisha Juguna ilizidi kuwa mbaya.
Ni Juguna ameuawa na serikali kwa sababu alikuwa akitetea vijana.
These weren't isolated incidents. They were part of a pattern, a slow, methodical purge of witnesses before they could testify. And then there was Paul Gisheru, the well-connected Nakuru-based lawyer who will become one of the ICC's central figures. He wasn't just accused of tampering with witnesses, he was charged with it. Allegedly, Gisheru paid bribes, issued threats, and coordinated a campaign to collapse the ICC's case against Deputy President William Ruto. But before he could tell his side of the story in full, he was found dead. September 26, 2022, inside the home in Karen. There was no signs of forced entry, no noise, no struggle, but witnesses say there was foam coming from his mouth, a grim detail that set off a wave of speculation. Had he been silenced? What did he know? And more importantly, who didn't want him to say it.
Kama mtu tujasikia ugonjwa wako wake, tena usikie huyo mtu amekufa all of a sudden. Unaona? Hata sisi tunashindwa. Mtu hakugonjeka at the same time amekufa. Tunajiuliza ni nini iliendelea.
Jugishirwa alikuwa na afya yake mzuri. Alikuwa akiongea, alikuwa na furaha.
This wasn't just a coincidence, it was becoming clear. The ICC's greatest challenge in Kenyan case wasn't lack of evidence. It was the systematic destruction of its witnesses, one by one. 2013, in a move that shocked the international community, but one that made perfect sense to a political, polarized nation. Kenyans went to the ballot and elected Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto as president and deputy president, two men already facing charges at the ICC, accused of orchestrating the very violence that had torn the country apart just 5 years earlier. To some, it was democracy in action. To others, it was a damning reflection of collective amnesia or perhaps collective defiance. From the very beginning of their tenure, Uhuru and Ruto's administration was accused of doing everything in its power to obstruct justice, not by saying it outright, but by withholding key evidence, delaying cooperation, and waging a quiet yet effective war against the ICC legitimacy. Former ICC prosecutor Fatou Bensouda would later describe Kenya's behavior as a wall of resistance. Her office was stonewalled, documents vanished, witnesses disappeared, leads went cold. But the obstruction wasn't just legal, it was strategic. The two leaders didn't just defend themselves in court, they reframed the narrative entirely. They painted the ICC as a foreign, neo-colonial weapon used by the West to weaken strong African leadership. And that message landed, not just in Kenya, but across the continent. The African Union rallied behind them, declaring that the ICC was unfairly targeting African leaders, turning justice into a political tool. At the height of the controversy, Uhuru Kenyatta stood before the world and declared, "We have been vindicated by the trust of the Kenyan people. This case is not just against me, but against the sovereignty of our nation." To his supporters, he was a patriot. To victims, he was a symbol of unfinished justice. In truth, the ICC case required more than just emotion. It needed hard proof. It needed unbroken chains of testimony, links between command and chaos. But those chains were shattered. Witnesses were buried, intimidated, and in some cases, murdered. Evidence evaporated, and slowly, the foundation of the prosecution's case began to crack. March 2015, Uhuru's charges were dropped. April 2016, Ruto's case was terminated. Both men walked free. For many Kenyans, this was a closure. For others, it was the end of hope. A silent message echoed across Rift Valley, Kisumu, Kibera. Justice had been traded, truth had been buried, and today, nearly 2 decades after the violence that shattered over 1,100 lives and displaced over 600,000 others, the question still hangs. What does justice look like when the powerful rewrite the narrative? And more importantly, can a nation truly heal when its wounds are still left wide open? Nairobi Insight.